Hello, dear students. I hope you all are doing well and are safe confined in your homes. Last time we had done breathing rate, transport of gases. Until now, we have learned the respiratory system in human beings. All of you know how inhalation will lead to adding oxygen into the blood, how it will be transported to the cell. Right? Now, today we are going to learn cellular respiration, that is the second step of respiration as a life process. We have learned, children, that this entire process will take place in two steps: breathing and respiration. Breathing we have already learned in the last class. So today we will see how that oxygen which you have inhaled is going to break down the food within the cell to liberate energy. So today we will be concentrating on cellular respiration. Children, the glucose that is already present within the cell as a result of assimilation of the simple nutrient, which we have already learnt before, will be broken down with the help of oxygen within the cell to liberate energy. So glucose is called the respiratory substrate. Depending upon the fate of this glucose, okay, what will happen to the glucose in aerobic and anaerobic conditions, we will learn two types of respiration: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. As the name suggests, aerobic respiration is the kind of respiration where the glucose will be broken down within the cell in presence of oxygen, whereas anaerobic respiration is the kind of respiration where the glucose will be broken down within the cell in absence of oxygen. So let us see the sequence of reactions to understand this. Children, cellular respiration. We all know that through the lung alveoli, oxygen has entered the blood. From the blood, it will reach the cell, and once the oxygen enters into the cell, it will act upon the respiratory substrate glucose to further break it down within the cell, accomplishing cellular respiration. First, we will learn about aerobic respiration. Now, before we learn about the types, I want to explain a few common steps which will take place. Children, now consider glucose. It is present in the cell. It is a 6-carbon compound, C6H12O6. There are 6 carbons attached to each other by bonds. The first catabolic breakdown of the glucose will take place within the cytoplasm of the cell. This is called glycolysis. Breakdown means lysis, glyco. Breakdown of glucose within the cytoplasm is called glycolysis, which is a common step both for aerobic as well as anaerobic respiration. What is the end product of glycolysis? The 6 carbons that were bonded are broken down to give you 2-pyruvic acid. That is 2 molecules of a 3-carbon compound. Pyruvic acid or pyruvate is formed. You can see this is a ketonic carboxylic acid. This is the structural formula for pyruvic acid or pyruvate. The 6-carbon first breakdown has led to formation of a 2-3-carbon compound, that is pyruvic acid. Now, this pyruvic acid in presence of oxygen in aerobic conditions will be completely broken down in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, which is the organelle that leads to ATP synthesis. You have already learnt this before in grade 9 in the chapter Fundamental Unit of Life. That is, this is the organelle which has the enzymes to break down the food and liberate energy, right? So this pyruvate is further completely broken down within the enzymes, with the help of the enzymes in the mitochondria, to CO2, H2O with liberation of large amount of energy, which is designated as 38 ATP. This much is the amount of energy released when one glucose is completely broken down to the end products, carbon dioxide and water. So children, you can say that the end products of aerobic respiration are CO2 and water, and large amount of energy is liberated, 38 ATP energy is liberated. Now children, you must understand one thing, that this sequence of reaction is actually for aerobic respiration in presence of oxygen. Let us now consider what will happen to this pyruvate if there is absence of oxygen. In absence of oxygen in anaerobic organisms like yeast and certain anaerobic bacteria, this 3-carbon compound pyruvic acid that was obtained as a result of glycolysis will be further converted or incompletely broken down to ethyl alcohol or ethanol, CO2, and very less amount of energy will be produced. Now children, why less amount of energy is produced? Because there is incomplete breakdown. Okay, had it been complete breakdown, then all the bonds should be broken to get a single carbon, just like aerobic respiration. But you can see this is a 2-carbon and 1 more carbon, right? So this is incomplete breakdown of pyruvate, and you can see the end product form is an alcohol, that is ethanol. So this reaction where the breakdown of sugar leads to production of an alcohol, it is called a fermentation reaction. Okay, fermentation reaction leads to formation of an alcohol. No wonder yeast is commercially exploited for fermentation of sugar, and it is used in the production of alcoholic beverages, where when you add yeast to the sugar, it ferments the sugar and converts it into alcohol. So this reaction is for anaerobic respiration, where the end products are ethyl alcohol, CO2, and 2 ATP energy is liberated. Now let us take the third instance, that in aerobic conditions, these are the end products. In anaerobic conditions, these are. What will happen if there is lack of oxygen? Children, lack of oxygen is created when the demand of oxygen exceeds the supply. For example, let us say in anaerobic organisms there is no oxygen, but consider a case of aerobic organisms like human beings. Okay, we are all aerobic organisms, we respire in presence of oxygen. But when we undergo vigorous physical activity, when we run a lot or when we exercise a lot, then what do? We need a lot of energy. For that, a lot of oxygen is required, okay, because oxygen is actually breaking down the food. Now when lot of oxygen is utilized in the muscle cells for that period of time, when you have undergone physical activity, conditions are created where there is a lack of oxygen. In such a situation, the muscle cells switch over to anaerobic respiration because there is a lack of oxygen now. Okay, in that case the pyruvic acid will be converted to lactic acid. Lactic acid is a hydroxycarboxylic acid. This is the hydroxyl group and this is the carboxyl group. This is the structural formula of lactic acid. It's not given in your NCERT. You need not memorize. This is just for your knowledge. Lactic acid accumulation in the muscle cells causes muscle cramps. You get the pain after undergoing physical activity due to accumulation of lactic acid. And how do you get relieved? Once you increase your blood circulation by massaging or going for a hot spa treatment, the blood circulation increases, so again the oxygen is supplied at a proper pace and the muscles again switch over back to aerobic respiration. You get relieved of that pain. So you have learned today the fate of glucose in aerobic and anaerobic conditions. So this is just a summary of the reactions, children. Glucose, glycolysis, pyruvate. In presence of oxygen, end products CO2, water, 38 ATP. In absence, in organisms like yeast, fermentation will take place, ethanol, CO2 and 2 ATP. And in lack of oxygen, the pyruvate will be incompletely converted to lactic acid with 2 ATP energy. So for today, children, you just understand we have learned cellular respiration, what will take place within the cell if oxygen is present and if oxygen is not present. So for today, this much is enough. Thank you and have a nice day.